Hey everyone, welcome back to a special episode of Prime Answers. This is a pre-E3 episode. You guys submitted questions a couple weeks ago. Sorry it took so long to get to them. I always kind of plan for Prime Answers to be this filler content that happens generally in the midst of my final days here before I actually arrive at E3 and begin all that content. I leave tomorrow to go to Minnesota to take an early flight the next morning. So this is kind of being recorded on my last day that I'm actually recording videos from home. We do have the Pokemon Direct live stream, but that's the last bit of content that'll actually be happening here in the studio for the next week and a half. Couple weeks, really. All right. That being said, let's get right into your questions. So Prime Answers is a series where you submit questions, usually through the YouTube community tab or sometimes on Twitter and stuff. All these questions come from the YouTube community tab, and there's a lot of E3 related ones, as to be expected. So let's just get right into the first question, which comes from Morrison22. He goes, if a future Zelda title ever goes multiplayer, which gameplay method would you prefer most? Co-op or competitive? There's already been multiplayer Zelda games. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. Four Swords Adventures, those were both multiplayer. Triforce Heroes as well. There was the spin-off Link's Crossbow Training. So that we've had, even Phantom Hourglass actually had an optional online multiplayer mode back on the DS. So multiplayer is not new to Zelda. So when you talk about co-op or competitive, it could be both, right? Like Four Swords Adventures, as an example, a very cooperative multiplayer experience for up to 4 players, but there was also a competitive aspect. I don't think they need to be mutually exclusive. So if a future Zelda title ever goes multiplayer, well, outside of the fact that it's already happened, I like more of what we've already had. I love co-op. I love competitive. Why can't it be both? I guess is my real answer, because that's what they've done in the past, is they've done both. Now, they have, like, Phantom Hourglass was competitive only. Four Swords was competitive only for the multiplayer aspect. Four Swords Adventures was competitive and cooperative. And Triforce Heroes was more cooperative than competitive, but there was a little bit of competition there on who was going to be the better player among the 3 on screen. So, again, it's one of those situations where I think both is better than just sticking to one or the other. Our next question comes from Sonic Man the Best. He says, what part of the world have you always wanted to travel to? Any part of the world that still has full-built medieval castles still standing. I know a lot of the medieval castles have kind of gone to ruin over the years, whether it's in the UK or Ireland or Germany or France, but there are still some places that have mostly fully intact castles, and that was one of my favorite subjects in history to learn about growing up with the medieval ages, and I really kind of want to go visit some of those castles at some point in my life. So really any country, generally Europe, that has those. I also wouldn't mind seeing the Great Pyramids someday out in Egypt. That's another destination that I would like to go check out eventually. Let's see, moving on. The next question comes from Lonnie Rowell, and it's our first E3 question. And he says, E3 is coming up. What are you most excited about? Playing the games. Traveling all the way across the country to play the games. I'm not looking forward to the lines. I'm not looking forward to the insane amount of people. I'm not looking forward to all the logistics when you're going through security. I'm not looking forward to the sleepless nights and all the video editing. But I am looking forward to actually playing the games. So that, to me, is what is really exciting now that I actually go to E3. Obviously, beyond that, you're always excited by new game reveals from any of the companies, not just Nintendo. So new game reveals obviously is a close second to actually playing games at E3. Mitchell Clybourne. So first, he says he's happy to see Prime Answers is back. Well, we'll see how often it happens, but it's here for now. Name one crazy off-the-wall prediction. He says, give it as an example, Sonic Adventure 3. I gave one in the betting special, so let me come up with a different one on the spot here. Crazy prediction. What would be? I guess F-Zero coming back. A new F-Zero game being announced for Switch. I suppose that I think that's a little out there. Snowboard Kids coming back, something like that. Some sort of one-off, not one-off, but like a franchise of a Nintendo's we haven't seen in ages that there's not even a whiff is coming. Would be interesting to see come back. Then Mitchell Claiborne also asks, are there any Sega games you're looking forward to being announced at E3? Do you think it's possible we could see Pikmin 4 at E3? So first off, on the Sega games thing, I'm not exactly sure all of the games that Sega has in their catalog. I know some of them, like Total War series by Creative Assembly, but that, we just had Three Kingdoms released for that, so I don't expect anything out of Creative Assembly. I think they might be handling the Sonic and Mario game at the 2020 Olympics, so there's that. But I actually get to try that game out. I have an appointment with Sega for that, so that's nice. But I honestly don't think that there is much that I'm looking forward to being announced by Sega, because I'm not expecting Sega to announce much. But I'm always up for surprises, and hopefully they surprise us. That's all I can really say. It's been a long time since I've been really into Sega games. And then, do you think it's possible we could see Pikmin 4? Possible, but not likely. I'll leave it at that. The Genuine Nintendo Geek says, being a parent gamer, how do you manage time for gaming, family, and work? If you don't work, how do you support your family with multiple little ones, a girlfriend, fiance, technically, and game collecting? Have a good day, Nate. Wishing you all the best. So, time management is always difficult in life, right? I think time management is one of the more difficult aspects of being an actual adult. Like, we're always told when we're younger, hey, manage your time better and you'll have more time to play or more time to hang with your friends if you manage your time better and get your chores and your homework. Like, we don't want to do our homework, we don't want to do our chores, we want to do this, we just want to play, we want to go whatever, but we feel like we never have time. But reality is, if you're really good at time management, you have time for everything. And we just don't want to have time for everything, right? Like, we just want to play games. We just want to hang with friends. We just want to go do what we want to do, go swimming down at the beach. But I do think that when you're an adult, it becomes a lot more difficult, because now there are things that, when you're a kid, if I didn't clean my room, mom will eventually get to it. It'll eventually upset her enough that she just does it, right? Well, that doesn't happen when you're an adult. When you're an adult, it's up to you to take responsibility for yourself, or at least it should be. Shame on you if you're an adult that is fully capable of taking care of yourself, but you still mooch off your parents. I don't like that. It's fine in times of strife, job loss, things like that. But at least take care of yourself. Do your own laundry, right? Cook for yourself. Clean up after yourself, etc. You're a guest in their house. You're no longer just their child. You're an adult. Act like one. That's just something that really upsets me about some people in my life. But that being said, how do you manage the time for gaming, family, and work? Very carefully. One thing that's been easier for me is because you talk about how, if you don't work, well, this is work. What I do on YouTube is work. I treat it as work. It's not a hobby for me. I know some people are like, what do you mean it's not a hobby? I get paid to make these videos. I get paid by YouTube. I get paid by our patrons. I am paid to create content. This is not a hobby for me. That being said, it's one that I really enjoy. It's work I love. It's work that I kind of have spent my whole life building up to. And I really enjoy it. And because my work is literally about video games, it's very easy for me to justify spending time playing video games, whether it's through live streams or whether it's just on my own, up in the room right before I go to bed on my Switch, whether it's on the big screen TV, whatever. It's easy for me to justify playing games. That might change coming up because I'm likely getting a new job here in the next month to stack on top of this, just because you need that extra revenue sometimes, and YouTube isn't quite cutting it for me. I don't need much more, but I do need a little bit more revenue coming in, so that'll make things a little more difficult. And what will end up happening is my gaming/YouTube time is going to be cut back, so there'll be less videos. You'll still have at least a video a day, I believe, barring any unforeseen things happening, but it's still going to be less content than has been in the past when I've had 2, 3, 4 videos per day. So that's one thing that gets cut back, and obviously the amount of time I have to game will be cut back as well. But I'll still be able to find time. I'll be able to literally bring my Switch to work and play it on break, and there's still time to play games. So that's one thing is getting games scheduled around that. Now then you have children, right? During the school year, it's not too bad. 2 of my kids are gone at school. Next year, all 3 of them are gone at school. So that's obviously easier to find gameplay time. But honestly, it's not that hard. When my kids go to bed, when my fiance is falling asleep and I'm still awake, we'll go play a game for an hour or 2. Not a big deal. Helps wear me out, helps relax me and get me in the right frame of mind to actually get a good night's sleep. So that's when I find time to game. Family always is first. If there's anything going on with family, comes first. Today is my kid's last day of school. So after school, they have an after-school party. We will be picking them up from school and taking them to that after-school party down at the park. And yeah, I'll be doing that instead of playing games and releasing videos because I always spend time with my kids and my fiance above everything else. Now, the one thing that does tend to suffer the most is time with my significant other, my fiance, my future wife, because mostly because of the kids. All the family time we get, all the time that I'm usually around her is with the kids. We live together. We've been living together for 7 years. It's this isn't anything new, but regardless of if I have this as my job or a completely different job as I've had over the years, it doesn't really matter. We don't get away from the kids very often. What we found is important is at least one night a week finding some sort of babysitter to come over at one night and just spend the night together. Go wherever we want to go. Maybe we want to stop at the casino. Maybe we want to go out for dinner and a movie. Maybe we want to just go down to the beach and have a little bonfire. Maybe we go for just a really long walk or a long drive. Who knows? Maybe we rented out a hotel room that night and we just go relax in the hot tub and go swimming and all that stuff indoors. Like there's a lot of things that we do like that to kind of keep things fresh. And that is something that I think is important to remember, especially after you have kids, to keep that connection there. Remind yourselves, hey, we're not together because we have kids. That had nothing to do with why we got in a relationship. We got in a relationship and had children in the first place because of how much we love each other and each other's company. And I think it's important that that is brought into a relationship. So I don't find it's difficult for me to find time right now. Now, as my kids get older and they have more sporting events, more music events and stuff like that, gaming will probably suffer the most out of everything. But again, as long as I'm still doing this YouTube thing, I'm given the constant excuse, hey, I make money to play games. And it's easy for me to justify to my fiance even that, hey, look, I got to spend an hour tonight after the kids are done with their sports playing games because, hey, I got to review this. I got to talk about this, and I want hands-on experience. So for me, it's a lot easier because I've integrated gaming into my daily life. But for other people, it might not be. So again, it's kind of one of those, finding that right work, life, gaming, kids, whatever balance is always tough. But it took many years for me to get to the point where I'm now, where I kind of feel like I have a very good balance. The new job will throw it off a bit, but I already have been kind of planning for the new job and working out my balance in life, so it's not going to actually feel that much different for at least my family. So yeah, we'll kind of just deal with things as they come, right? Gaming is still very important to me. I'm so highly passionate about it, and it's still my escape from everything in life. So, all right. Next up, Y2 Wrestling says, at E3, which company do you enjoy the most, not including Nintendo? Which company do I enjoy the most? I mean, Ubisoft is probably the one that I point to that brings out a lot of the games I'm really interested in. So Ubisoft is always fun, and their booth is always really great too. Bethesda's booth always looks sick. So they got to give them a shout out as well. But yeah, in terms of just the games that I get most excited for, it's usually Ubisoft. Obviously, Microsoft and Sony, when they're there, are exciting prospects as well, and I enjoy watching their shows and checking out their booths and all that. But obviously, I don't own a PlayStation 4 right now, and I recently sold my Xbox One X. So the thing I'm most excited about is obviously this year, Xbox for next gen, what's happening with Nintendo, and then Ubisoft are kind of the big ones that I am paying attention to this year, although I'll be watching every single press conference. So we'll see. My opinion might change by the end of this E3. Let's see here. A random gaming dude says, what do you want to see in the next Mario Kart? More modes. I think Mario Kart, in terms of its base modes, its online play, even adding that battle mode back in, I think they've kind of perfected the way that Mario Kart is. So yeah, I want more of that. But now I want to see more different modes. Like they have team modes, right? The red versus blue. What about a Team Sonic Racing style mode where you have groups of 3 and you can like swap items between each other? That's a very interesting thing that Team Sonic Racing does that I would like to see experimented with in Mario Kart. I think just adding new, unique, or even stolen modes in that case, that would be a complete rip-off mode, to Mario Kart I think would be ideal. I think it's rested a lot on time trials, on the cups, on the online, and normal team racing. I would like to see them add a lot more different types of modes to the game in addition to. So keep the excellence that is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but then add a bunch of new stuff on top. Kind of like they've been doing with Splatoon 2, to be fair. They've added a lot of new modes since the first game. So I'm hoping that continues, and that is a trend we start to see with Mario Kart 9. All right, let's see here. The next question comes from Sonic47 Central, and he says, what are your hopes for Animal Crossing on Nintendo Switch? That it is the biggest Animal Crossing to ever exist, that you can bring your friends into your village. Heck, maybe your friends could even build out the village with you. That would be really neat. And that you're still mayor, but they just give you a lot more side quests to do. This is something I got to total credit to the BitBlock who brought this up in a video on Animal Crossing, some desires and hopes that he has, or expectations, I suppose, and that is a new camera angle. So the way he described it is perfect. The way Animal Crossing has worked to date when you move across the world, it's kind of like a rolling log, right? You move, and it's kind of like the world just kind of rolls up along with you. That's what it feels like anyways, and that's been the camera angle since the beginning. And I would like to see a new camera angle. I don't think that's going to destroy what Animal Crossing is to have a new camera angle. So I don't know what that camera angle is going to be. I don't know if they'll allow a free roam camera, but something that allows us to do more camera work to kind of play the game the way we want would be something I want to see. And again, I got to see what this ends up being. We haven't seen a full-blown Animal Crossing game since New Leaf. It's been a while, so we got to see what happens here. Next up, this comes from Key Love 2, and he says, hey, I've been noticing the numerous releases of Final Fantasy games on Switch as of late. I know Final Fantasy is a very popular RPG series, JRPG series to be more specific of the subgenre, but it's all RPGs. And I have been interested in getting into it for quite a while now, but haven't known where to start. Have you played many of the Final Fantasy games? I have played quite a few of them. And if so, out of those released on Switch thus far, which do you most recommend? I've watched some of Final Fantasy VII and it looks awesome. It is awesome. That's one of the ones I haven't played, believe it or not. But is that an okay one to start with? For reference, I also enjoyed the Xenoblade games and I Am Setsuna, but found Octopath Traveler's battle system to be a little slow. Thank you. Basically, every single Final Fantasy game essentially stands on its own, so you can pick up any of them and start. That's the beauty of Final Fantasy, is you do not need to play any particular Final Fantasy game. You don't need to play them in any particular order, unless it's like a direct sequel like X2 and stuff like that. So honestly, just look up gameplay of different ones and see which one tickles your fancy and go with it. That's my best bet for Final Fantasy, because there are some differences in battle systems, turn-based, live action, that kind of stuff. Just kind of look up the game on YouTube or something, or watch trailers that are on the Nintendo Switch eShop if you're going to get a Switch version of it, and just see which one tickles your fancy, because they're all excellent. 7's widely considered, by the way, one of the greatest games of all time. So if you think that one looks really amazing, go ahead and pick it up, because why not? Cody Shadley says, do you think we'll see another Microsoft game head over to Switch, since we got two of them this year? What, Cuphead, Hellblade? Cuphead, though, technically wasn't published by Microsoft, so you can argue that Microsoft didn't have as much to say with that. Whereas Hellblade, they actually own that company now, so that might have already started porting before they bought. I don't know. Do I think we're going to see another Microsoft game head over to Switch? I don't know if we'll see another one this year, but I don't think we've seen the end of Microsoft games coming to Switch. Ori and the Blind Forest, I think, is the next prime example to come over. But in terms of like a major IP, I don't know. I mean, when next gen launches, maybe we'll start to see them bring some of the older, Halo games to Switch or something. I have no idea. Just kind of spitballing. I know there's been a lot of speculation since we heard that Xbox Live in some form is going to be on Switch, but I think we're not at the point that we should be expecting Microsoft games on Switch just yet, even though my betting special kind of has a Microsoft game heavily involved in it. But anyways, go watch that if you're interested. I know it's a 2-hour show, but very entertaining, I've been told anyways. Joe Schmo said, do you think the reason why the online system of the Switch is so inept, backwards, and limited is because of how Miiverse was a disaster? No, and I don't think Miiverse was a disaster. I think the Mii stuff happening all on the home screen of Wii U is kind of it was interesting, but not that great of an idea. Miiverse stuff was fine. There were issues with it, of course. Maybe too much censorship, maybe too much of this, too much of that. But honestly, Miiverse was great. And what I liked about Miiverse is it kind of showed that Nintendo maybe understands how social networks work a little bit. But then they threw that all away with Nintendo Switch Online. So I don't think Miiverse really has anything to do with why the Switch system is backwards, because Miiverse, honestly, in many ways, was ahead of its time and still offers features that aren't available on current social media platforms, like the ability to draw right in the social media platform. That's amazing. And I honestly don't think Miiverse was a disaster at all. In fact, I remember it being one of the most liked features from the Wii U era is Miiverse. So, yeah, it's hard for me to see your line of thought here when I don't agree with the premise. Next up, Joe Schmo says, what era of Nintendo do you prefer? GameCube Nintendo or Switch Nintendo? Probably Switch Nintendo because Nintendo is confident in themselves again. GameCube Nintendo, it looked like they were a little tepid. They made a system trying to be the best out there. They feel like they were the best out there, but they didn't get the support they expected from third parties. And while Nintendo had some great games. I mean, here's the thing. The thing about comparing Switch era and GameCube era is we know how GameCube era went. We know how it ended. We know the entire library of games, all that jazz. We know everything about the GameCube era. We don't know the entirety of Switch's era, and we're in the middle of it. So it's really easy for me to say I prefer the Switch era over the GameCube era because we're in it, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm enjoying a lot of games. I can tell you right now, I've already bought more games for Switch than I ever bought for GameCube. That's one reason why I'm picking the Switch era, but I do think this is a kind of question that is hard to answer definitively until we're done with the Switch era, and then we can look back on the Switch era and then kind of compare it to GameCube. And again, this is all personal opinions and see which era you prefer the most. As an example, like Luigi's Mansion as a launch game on GameCube was awesome. Is Luigi's Mansion 3 going to hold up to that? Like, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of comparisons you could do like that. Obviously, the attitude of Nintendo. All that jazz. So, again, this is something that I think we should come back to, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years from now, whenever the Switch era is done. Next up here, an unbiased Nintendo fan says, what are your top 3 favorite Nintendo E3s, and what are your top 3 least favorite Nintendo E3s? I don't know if I could think of my 3 least favorite. I could tell you my least favorite E3, for sure, was 2012 E3 for Nintendo, their last live press conference. You had the embarrassment that was ending the show with Nintendo Land, and I think Nintendo Land's actually way better than people give it credit for, but it's not how you cap E3. And E3 2012, it was just bad. Just bad all around. It destroyed the messaging they had set up for Wii U, where Wii U was supposed to be a gamer console on par with everyone else, and for you, and then all of a sudden they lost all third-party support, and it was just not a good press conference. At all. And honestly, the failure of that press conference, much like Sony's last year, is what led Nintendo to go all digital, and then last year for Sony led Sony not to be there this year. So, that to me is their worst. Their best E3s, there's always E3 2004, just for one moment and one moment alone. Twilight Princess, that unveiling made that one of the best all-time live reactions to an E3 press conference ever. So that one, to me, is probably number one, just because I remember that moment when I was in high school, and I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. I freaked out just as much as the people, if not more, because I'm a big Zelda guy. So that E3 really always stands out to me as the best E3. And then, obviously, this is going to be where personal bias massively comes in, just like the last one, E3 2016. It was all Breath of the Wild all the time. It was my first ever E3. I went representing Zelda Informer, and I played a ton of Breath of the Wild, and it instantly became my favorite game of all time before I even got to play the full game, just the demo. So, yeah. It's hard for me to deny that I have some Zelda bias here in my top 3. After that, there's a lot of debate over what might be and might not be the best E3. I mean, the one where Satoru Iwata pulls the Wii out of his jacket. I forget which year that was. Was that 2005 or 2006? I think it was 2006 when they did the console reveal. I think it was in 2006. He literally pulls the Nintendo Wii out of his coat jacket. I think that is iconic, and that kind of moment is not. And at the time, wait, maybe it was 2005. Whichever E3 it was that he pulled the Wii out of his jacket. Because I remember he said, we heard that you want a revolution, right? Remember that we're like, we heard that you want a revolution. And then he pulls it out. Well, here it is. And he holds it up. That was epic. That one individual moment puts that E3 in my top 3. Again, I can't remember if it was 2005 or 2006, but whichever E3 that happened in, that is in my top 3. Really mad that I can't remember which one that is. And there's a whole bunch of other ones. Like, I think the last 2 E3s have been really good. I think last year's E3 was a bit weak in terms of game offerings, which is why they focus so much on Smash. But, so I wouldn't put that near the top 3. But, yeah, man, there's been some amazing moments. 2 of them live, and then Breath of the Wild was just such a magical thing. It had to be in there for me. As for another bad one, oh, man. E3 2011... I was a bit rough because, again, another Zelda-related thing. They brought out Skyward Sword, and then it didn't work on stage. That was really embarrassing. So another bad one. Basically, they had two bad back-to-back E3s there, even though they talked about Wii U, and they got people excited with the unprecedented partnership with EA. In hindsight, that was just a bad press conference. So there's another one too, to kind of throw my hat in the ring of bad ones. Besides that, I can't remember any other one in particular that stands out as bad, except maybe last year. And even then, I'm sure there's ones that were worse than last year. I just can't remember them all. There's been 24 E3s, so there's been a lot of them. But those are the ones that stand out to me anyways. Graphics don't matter, games do, says, do you like the MCU, so the Marvel Cinematic Universe? And if so, what Marvel Cinematic Universe movies do you like and don't like? I absolutely love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I have seen every single movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I believe. I'll have to double check. There might be one I missed, but I'm pretty sure I've seen all of them. And what movies do I like and don't like? I mean, the Iron Man movies, even 3, which wasn't the worst of the bunch. I still loved them. Obviously, I love the Avenger movies. Honestly, it's hard for me to point out movies I didn't like. I'm trying to think of particular movies that I didn't enjoy. And honestly, I think I enjoyed all of them. I don't think there's one that I came out of and been like, that wasn't that good. Even Captain Marvel, the only issue I had with Captain Marvel wasn't the movie. The movie was fine. It was just, it kind of felt like, why didn't Captain Marvel come out like years ago if it's this big important character, right? That felt a little weird to introduce such an important character, but not have them introduced way earlier and just have them not be in the Avenger movies at the time because she's off doing whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting that I honestly enjoy the MCU so much that there's very few movies I didn't enjoy. So I'm a lot more forgiving of movies that people consider, like Iron Man 3. I know a lot of people think Iron Man 3 is bad, but I still really enjoyed it. And Robert Downey Jr. dressing up as Iron Man and playing Tony Stark, to me, is like, it's hard to have a bad movie when that's happening. So, I don't think I could come up with a movie I didn't like from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let's see here. Mudkip for Life says, did everyone forget about Mario and Sonic at the 2020 Olympic Games? I have not talked about it much, but I am playing at E3. I have an appointment with Sega to play it. When people talk about 2019 Switch games, they never include Mario and Sonic. The game is confirmed for 2019 release. So the reason it's not talked about is because nobody cares. I'm gonna play the game. I'm gonna put gameplay of it up on the channel. I might even do a hands-on impression video, and I guarantee it'll be one of my worst viewed ones. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe you guys will prove me wrong, but I have a feeling it'll be one of my worst viewed videos because Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games is basically always been like a mini game fest, party game that is just okay. It's mediocre and generally doesn't get people excited. It's just something that sells because it's Mario and it's Sonic and it's around the time that the Olympics are happening. A lot of kids sometimes get into it. It's more of a family game. It's not something that hardcore gamers seem to ever give a crap about. So that's why it's not brought up. But you're right in that it is a title that's coming out this year in December, I believe, already confirmed for that. So and I'll be playing it at E3, so we'll get to check it out and let you guys know, if it's good. I honestly don't think I've ever played a Mario and Sonic game, a Sonic Olympic game. So, we'll see what happens. John has the final question for this, and he says, what was your inspiration to become Nintendo Prime and stop being Zelda Informer? Does losing your job at Zelda Informer count as inspiration? I was kicked out of Zelda Informer. I didn't stop becoming, I know you're referring to this channel, but it's all related, right? I was editor-in-chief of Zelda Informer for almost 9 years. It was like a month short of 9 years for me when I was let go. What happened is Zelda Informer was sold by the owner back in, when was this? February of 2016 is when ownership transferred. I think it was being talked about in December of 2015. But anyways, in February of 2016, Zelda Informer came under new ownership. That new ownership happened to be, at the time, the number one Zelda site in the world. The guy who owned that. The number one Zelda site in the world is Zelda Dungeon. And he basically, in my opinion, bought out Zelda Informer to eliminate competition. Because Zelda Informer at that time was the number 2 Zelda site in the world. In a large part thanks to yours truly. But I mean, that's tooting my own horn. We had a lot of people that actually helped make Zelda Informer what it was. And didn't like competition. The guy who owned the site just really wasn't into owning it anymore. I didn't have the money to buy it. The offer made by Zelda Dungeon was way more money than I could ever offer. So there's that. And then the new owner decided to keep Zelda Informer open and run it alongside Zelda Dungeon. And in doing so, he decided to keep me on for about a year. So I stayed on as editor-in-chief under a new contract. I got a regular salary, plus I got to make some extra sales money on the Facebook page. And then my contract was renewed again in December of 2016, and then I was informed literally 2 weeks after renewal that he wasn't going to renew it past April 30th, which was the last day that we agreed on renewing my contract to. And he said, "Yeah, I'm going to let you go." And the reason that he wanted to let me go is because he knew he was going to quote unquote merge the websites, which basically meant he's deleting Zelda Informer. He's getting rid of it. And so he knew that I would be opposed to it because I told him when we met when he bought the site that I was opposed to it. So whatever he did, he ended up merging and closing down Zelda Informer, and I was let go. And unfortunately, one thing he was worried about in letting me go is that I would start up another Zelda site, because since I was a huge reason that Zelda Informer got as big as it was, he knew that if I dedicated myself to it, I could start up another Zelda site and quickly jump up to be in competition with him, which he just spent a lot of money to ensure wasn't happening anymore. I, at the time, had a side project called NintendoPrime.net, and I would do, editorials and news there, not necessarily about Zelda. It would just be about general Nintendo stuff. And I also had a YouTube channel that I had been running a Nintendo Prime podcast on. And what happened is I realized in losing my job that I didn't really want to start over again. Right? I didn't want to start from square one, building a new Zelda website, and trying to do my best to bring that to the top. So there's some really nasty details in between I don't want to get into about why I ended up agreeing to this, because this could have got really nasty in court. But I agreed to an exit contract. That exit contract did things like prevents me from starting up or working for a Zelda website until I'm 40, basically. It was a 10-year deal, and I signed it when I was 30. So until I'm 40, I cannot start up or work for a Legend of Zelda website. Doesn't mean I can't cover the game. It just can't be at a Zelda-specific website. So I could be hired by Nintendo Life to write about Zelda, but I can't and I can't make guides. I'm not. That was another thing. I'm not allowed to write guides for Zelda stuff. So in signing that exit contract, I got a couple things. I got the Zelda Informer Twitch channel, which got rebranded, which didn't have a huge following anyway, so in hindsight, that really wasn't a huge deal, but that's a thing that I got. And then I also got the Zelda Informer YouTube channel, which, by the way, had basically been mine anyways, because I founded it, I built it up, my face was all over it already in various videos. So literally, I was the personality of the channel as it was. So I got the YouTube channel as well in signing that exit contract. Originally, the exit contract was supposed to have a severance package and other things, and that's why I initially agreed. Then he yanked that. Anyways, I don't want to get too deep into that. All I know is that the reason the channel stopped being Zelda Informer is because Zelda Informer stopped existing and I was fired. And then in the exit contract, I got the channel and rebranded it to Nintendo Prime because it can't be a Zelda channel anymore, and started doing more and more videos on Nintendo. And fast forward like 2.5 years, and here we are. So there you go. That's my story. And I think that's cool because actually the first time I went to E3 was as Zelda Informer, and then the next time I went to E3 was as Nintendo Prime. So, hey, how about that? Anyways, folks, I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Prime Answers. I hope you're excited and hyped for E3. I know I am. Oh my gosh, it's going to be awesome. I want to thank you all you guys for tuning in. Be sure to enter our Nintendo Switch Super Smash Bros. Ultimate giveaway to the game. I'll link down in the description. Also, from now until the end of E3, if you become a $5 backer or up on patreon.com/Nintendo Prime, Eric and myself will make a personalized thank you video and send it privately to you from E3. These are additional videos that are beyond the normal E3 content, and they are made specifically just for you if you become a new patron at the $5 level or higher. So that's something to consider, as well as a personal thank you for supporting us in our journey through E3. Thank you for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next video.